most of the time. Tash does some editorial thing with a style magazine called, wait for it, Swish. S-W-Y-S-H. Yeah, that's how it's spelled. There's a lot of drivel about which coverings are in this year, a lot of recipes, a lot of stuff on weight loss. The two biggest interests for her generation seem to be food and how to make it look like you've never eaten it. I should have sold up my detective agency, bought a pizza parlour and a gym. On October 22, 1999, Natasha's 30th birthday was around the corner, but she hadn't aged in all the years I'd known her. Not back then, not now. For a long time it was like that for me. Every day I'd stare in the mirror to shave, and my face looked no different than it had 10 years earlier. Then Grace was born, and overnight I had character lines and my whole take on the world changed, and ships on the horizon and low-flying transports were no longer exciting or interesting, but disturbing. Perth's October is as reliable as your parents' old Holden. This one was no exception. The sun was warm, not fierce. The flowers smelled good. Tiny creatures hummed. The final field was almost decided for the cup, and the bacon sandwich they made at the cafe, while overpriced, was good quality. I often idly wondered what it would be like to live around here instead of where I did, inner city north, among retired market gardeners and Vietnamese. Very pleasant, I guessed, but knew, even on our combined income, I was dreaming. Former Leviathan businessman Barry Dunn was said to inhabit an expensive apartment across the road and to frequent the cafe, but our paths hadn't crossed for years. In fact, I'd only seen him once since the funeral of his mistress, my former lover. A psycho rich kid had cut off her head. I'd wound up with broken ribs and become a 5-minute hero, exposing corrupt police and the wealthy they protected. Then I'd slipped back to anonymity. Dunn had taken a dunking on some big international plays. His ex-wife got the mansion. His racehorses had to be sold. The upstart Dunn would never get back to where he had been. The captains of industry were determined to keep him, a cabin boy. The grass isn't always greener. I had Tash and Grace, enough money to pay the bills, the ocean, and a tasty bacon sandwich. So whatever envy came my way was fleeting. That day I sat back and sipped my coffee, grabbed an abandoned West off the table next to me. The headlines were all Timor. Was Indonesia going to become more involved, send troops back over the border? Consensus was it was covertly already provisioning the militia, and this might escalate. There was an article about how our computers were going to stop working on New Year's Day. I could only hope. And another about the Olympics. In a year's time they would be on in Sydney. Sports journos were tipping record medal counts. Naysayers were claiming stadiums wouldn't be adequate. This is what I remember of October 22, 1999. Later, the date will be burned into my brain because it was the last time I swam without a shadow looming over me. And I don't mean a troop transport. About 40 hours on, Emily Virtue, a 20-year-old woman, said goodbye to her friends at a Claremont nightclub, went out to get a taxi home, and disappeared. Claremont was one suburb inland from where I sat that morning. It was the heartland of the city's rich and powerful, whose kids carried on charmed lives around private schools and the university. A few Dolce & Gabbana clip-clops south of where 20 years earlier Mr. Gruesome snatched the young female victim I later found. In 1979, I was a young cop. That was an epoch away, before mobile phones and CDs, when there were still drive-ins, and bands like Loaded Dice filled the pubs 6 nights a week. But nobody was thinking about that precedent, even though Emily's disappearance was out of character. The family were beside themselves. The police, I knew, would be taking it very seriously. They'd be looking at boyfriends, perverts, anybody who might have held a grudge. But these dreadful things happen not infrequently, and Emily's disappearance just buzzed in the background of my life. Another nasty piece of news that bobbed up on the TV during sessions while I tried to feed Grace yogurt. Things changed just after Australia Day as Perth grudgingly went back to work, disappointed to find that computers hadn't stopped. I'd headed into the office. A year